talking with Robert Berry about the forthcoming release from 3.2 called Third Impression. This is the artwork behind me. Robert, thanks for your time today.
Hey, Michael, I appreciate you taking the time for me. You said this is your YouTube channel. I'm thinking back to the first three album. There was no YouTube, really no internet. It's 1988. And that's not that long ago. I'm going, wow, things have really changed, right?
It feels like to those of us who have been around a while, it feels like 1988 just happened, but it's really been a long time since that.
Yeah, 35 years, well, yeah, 30 something years.
Yeah. So I want to start out by asking you, you come out with some new songs, you decide to release a 3.2 album. Why a 3.2 album? Why now? Why was the time right to revisit this particular project?
It's interesting. They put out a 3 live in Boston in 2015, 2016. So somewhere. Keith had sort of left 3 behind in 1989. He said, I don't want to do any more. I'm getting criticized too much. When this live in Boston came out, he called me immediately and he was so excited. He goes, wow, we were such a good band. I just had no idea. People had sent him letters complaining about how can you be playing songs and blah, blah, blah. And it affected him. He didn't like the criticism. So he broke up the band. Then he's hearing how good it was, which I always thought, of course, but I was the new guy. Of course, I'm going to think it's going to go, oh my God, how did I wind up playing with these guys, right?
Right.
And he was so excited 27 years later that I just simply said, Keith, would you consider doing another one? Now, Frontiers Records had been bugging me for 10 years to do one. I said, oh, Keith, I won't even ask him about it. He really, because we've done a lot of things between that 27 years, a TV commercial. He played on some albums for me, Tempest and something. We stayed friends, stayed in contact, but I never asked him about 3. I just knew he wanted to leave behind. All of a sudden, there he is, all excited. And he goes, I said, what do you think about doing a follow-up? He goes, maybe, meaning what company, how much money, right?
Right.
We all needed to make a living. So I called Frontiers right away. I said, look, I feel something on the hook, on the fishing line, if I can get a good budget. And what was funny about that is I called Keith back and said, I got us this much money. He goes, who has that kind of money? I said, they want you, Keith. They want Keith Emerson on the label. And I said, artistic freedom. He goes, wow, that's fantastic. He said, okay, let's do it. So when I called the company back, I asked him for another $5,000. And I said, well, Keith was good about it, but if I just get another $5,000 for him, right? So I was negotiating. He was excited. Right. We did the last album, had it 2/3 of the way done. This was called The Rules Have Changed, 2 years ago now. In the middle of it, of course, he committed suicide. We lost him. I was his sort of happy place because he had good money coming in. He was working on an album. He was, he's all about the music.
Right.
I actually had no idea, even though I'd seen him a month earlier in Los Angeles, how tormented he was about other things in his life, home life, impending health things. Lost him, wasn't going to finish the album. A year later, his son Aaron said, well, you got a lot of material. The record company, come on, you got to do it. So I said, look, I'm going to finish it. And if you guys think it's good enough, we'll put it out. So I finished it. They loved it. It came out. It did just fantastic. I'm still amazed at how well it did. So the record company says, you should do a follow-up. We do put out a lot of albums. This album did really well. And I said, I only have one song that I couldn't use because it's such a big song. It's called Never. Did they give you a link to the album? Have you heard it?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Because it's not out yet. So only a few people have heard it, that I'm talking to. And Never was such a big piece of music. And it was halfway kind of finished writing wise, not a lot else done to it that
right.
I couldn't put it on the Rules of Change. It was just too much. So I said, if I can write 7 songs that I think are worthy of this album and that Keith would be proud to be a part of, because he's not here, then I'll finish Never. I got the 7 songs done, and with the last album, something, if you want to say it's Keith's spirit guiding, whatever it is, something guided me. I think my friendship with him, being in a band with him, recording with him, writing with him, and Carl, they were my heroes when I was young, playing in a progressive rock cover band. So I absorbed everything, and I'm capable of playing keyboards. So I understood what Keith did. I could never play like him unless I'm copying him, of course. But so I got the album together. The record company said, this is a strong follow-up. Now, the strong follow-up didn't excite me, so I had to check with a few people. And there's a writer named Anil Prasad who really investigated the first 3.2 album. And he said, this is more than a worthy follow-up. And my manager, Nick, in England said that this is really, really good. You can't tell as an artist when you spend a year working on something, if it's better than the last thing, if it's junk, if it's going to be, you know what I mean? It's just hard.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because it's something that I was curious about, because back when 3 was released, the Power of 3 album, it was at a weird time for progressive rock musicians because they were starting to do shorter compositions. They were starting to be more concise in what they were saying at the time, and so that created a backlash,
Yeah.
from their current followers, and then the new followers didn't care for them because they were these prog rock dinosaurs. So it was a kind of a weird
Right.
time.
And what's funny, with my band, 3, Carl Palmer was in Asia to sort of blaze the trail for that, right? They were
Yeah,
doing songs with little progressive elements in it, and people loved it because there were 4 huge names in that band. So it was okay for Carl to do 3. No, I never criticized Carl. But Keith had never done that. It was always the nice and ELP, this crazy mad scientist playing the most incredible keyboards you ever heard. They only a couple guys sent letters telling him how much they thought he was ruining his legacy. One even said for the tour, we had 2 female background singers that you're ruining your career, and how dare you have scantily clad female background singers in the band. I'm thinking, well, I've played to prog audiences. None of the guys I know are going to complain about that, although they
right.
weren't scantily clad, So I'm going, they were just really down on Keith doing anything but ELP, which I understood. I wasn't Greg Lake, but I was a huge Greg Lake fan. So when they said that to me, I go, yeah, I get it. I'd like to see Greg too. Maybe he could join.
Yeah.
But you're
So
right. It was a
when
strange.
when you look back at 3 and how it was received critically, and how I mean, it made the top 100 albums but didn't get very high. Do you
Yeah.
do you think that it, because I mean, this surprised me because I came to that album later. Like I wasn't like right there
Yeah.
when it was released. I found it like probably 10 years after it was released, and I was surprised to find that people had criticized it. I mean, it was the music was good, the vocals, everything was like it was a good album, and so I'm wondering if it was just. Do you think the timing was wrong for that band, in 1988, and do you think that because Frontiers was so interested in it, do you think that that's sort of the case, that it was just a bad fit for the time, and that the songs actually hold up better now?
I found that a few countries like Italy love the album completely. Um, what we didn't do was make it more palatable for the ELP fans, which was our launching point. We had to start somewhere, and we weren't going to start with a new. We had talking about went to number 7. Actually, we always say number 9. We actually got to number 7 at the top 10, which was really great. But that was the new audience that did that, and we needed to get our foundation with the ELP, yes, Genesis, all those people that like progressive rock. And we only really had Desi La Vida, and Talking About was kind of like Asia. It had those progressive elements in it, and maybe Lover to Lover did. But the rest of it was, we had a song by Sue Schifrin, who was in the band for a week. Keith was working with writing songs with her. A song called Chains, which is a great song for Tina Turner. And I love singing it way up there. It's a really great song, but it was totally so wrong for that fan base that we wanted to use for our foundation. Some of my songs that Geffen was grooming me to be this Brian Adams meets Sting kind of guy, like a straight rock guy with progressive sort of creative elements. Runaway. It's a favorite of mine, but totally wrong for 3. Do or Don't. I love doing that acoustically, but it really wasn't right for 3. Not to start with. When I got to the rules had changed, and I got Keith on board, we spent many hours talking about where we went wrong, what we thought we should have done then. So let's use that for our foundation, and how are we going to push this into the future. And I believe that that's why the rules of change did so well, because people felt us honoring Keith's path and my past too, and the 3 past, but moving it, a little tougher on the rhythms, And of course, now with Third Impression, I'm left alone to do this. One song with Keith, totally honoring all that we have planned and decided to do, but also saying, okay, well, there'll never be another album I can do with Keith. This is the last 3 album. And how am I going to move my fan base, which is part progressive and part AOR, to where I might go on my next album? So I don't want to make it sound too calculated, but all that needs to happen within like our heart and soul, what pours out naturally. So I can't just leave progressive behind. There's no way that I could do what Geffen was trying to do to make me Bryan Adams, you know. It's not gonna happen.
I mean, once something's musically in your DNA, you know, you don't take that out. So, but I'm curious as, yeah, that's
they do,
true.
and they lose their base, they lose their foundation, and
Yeah.
their careers go boop, you know.
So when 3 transitioned into 3.2, were there discussions with Carl? Was Carl just always out?
No, he wasn't. Carl was approached about it, and he told me, look, I don't have time. I'm totally dedicated to the ELP legacy. But if they pay me this much, like one of the things that Carl said to me when I first joined the band way back in '87, and I said, wow, this is just fantastic. I can't wait to make this music happen. And he goes, and don't be afraid to make a small profit. We stuck in it's the funniest thing. Do not be afraid to make a small profit. And he's been very successful for, I'll say, just a drummer. And you know, he's way more than that.
Right.
He is such a great businessman, motivating, great at arranging the whole thing. But he knows how to make money at it. More than Greg and Keith did. I mean, Carl did really well with all the stuff he did. And he just the drummer, right? Not the songwriter. So he asked for so much money. I said, well, I'll ask him, Carl, but you know, that's more than Keith's getting, and he's getting a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll only do 3 songs, but I'll forget. I'm not gonna even ask him. He was, you know, he's still dedicated to the ELP legacy. I get it. I think he should be. He's the only one left. He's got all the parts, you know. His guitar player Paul's incredible. Simon's incredible. It's such a great band. Every time they hear he calls me, I go see him. But also, funny enough, Keith wanted to use Simon Phillips, and it wasn't because the last name was a P, Palmer Phillips. Right. But we both said we want the rhythm of this album to be really strong. We wanted to be a tougher bottom end on it than 3 was, and straighter in a way with the counterpoint on top of it. So in Keith's mind, he wasn't gonna do the album with Carl. It was me that wanted to get the original beauty of the whole thing back together, you know.
Right. Yeah, and for, you know, just for, it would be easy to say, well, you know, Carl asked for so much money, but I mean, Carl would have to put something else on hold to do this, so it had to be worth his while anyway. So so it's understandable.
Yeah, I totally got it. I said, I get it, Carl. I mean, who plays more than Carl Palmer? Shows. I mean, my God, he's playing all the time, everywhere. Carl, I know you don't need the money. He goes, this is what I do. I love to play. And the clubs are smaller and smaller that he's playing. You know, he's like right in your face now, which is fantastic. You sit there, you watch him. That's what I got to see on the 3 tour, where, you know, usually a band would go in the dressing room during the drum solo. I would either sit side stage or up in the catwalk above the arenas and stuff and watch every night his drum solo in amazement. It blew me away, you know. I'm a huge Carl Palmer fan, so I was disappointed, but right, he's so busy.
So the second album came out. It's 3.2. Keith has passed away. You had compositions from Keith. You had some playing, I guess, some recordings from Keith.
I had 6 songs. I mean, they were his parts were created. They were played. He had to send them to me, of course. And you know, I had one song, and I forget which one it is now, that I had stuff from 1987 that we didn't use. You know, I made a new song out of it. It was him from back then. And you know, I haven't talked about that before because I had to replace the state said, first of all, this big battle about me even getting to do the album. I said, well, Keith and I agreed to do it. I'm doing it. And I told his son, hey, I'm going to deliver it. He goes, oh, you know, the estate board's not going to let you do that. I said, what? He goes, I don't know what to tell you. It wasn't Aaron stopping me. but they have this board, that wants to guide Keith's career.
Yeah.
So I contacted them and they said, no, we want him remembered as a composer. We don't want him remembered as a band member or doing anything else. I thought, really, a composer? The guy that's put knives in the organ and threw it on his back on top of him, and the only real showman in keyboards, right, that did that. Nobody's ever done anything with keyboards but Keith. I said, I don't think the writer's going to fly, or the composer. It's going to have to be the whole thing. So they wouldn't let me do it. So I said, finally, I said, okay, well, you know what I'm going to do? Since you don't know what I have of his and what he did, and you can't get it from me because I'm not going to send you the files, I'm just going to go ahead and release it under my name. We'll just forget Keith. There'll be no money for the estate, no money for his kids, nothing. I'm just going to put it out. What do you think about that? I'm not a jerk like that, but I was so, I didn't want to do it for a year. Then I spent a year doing it. It was a lot of invested time and emotion. And they got back to me the next day. Okay, all right. You can't use his playing, but you can use the parts and everything. You'll have to replay it. And of course, they're thinking I wasn't capable because I'm no Keith Emerson on the keyboards. But I had 8 years of classical piano, 2 years of jazz, was a keyboard prog player in my first band, played keyboards on stage with Keith. He never needed another keyboard player, but I got to. And so I set out. I have, you might even see behind me. I mean, see the Moogs back there, Korg Oasis. I have all the stuff that he had. So I set about doing it, and it took me some time. I'm capable. I'm no Keith Emerson. And when it was done, that's why I say I checked it with Anil Prasad, this well-known writer. He came down here side by side, and he just sat there. He goes, I can't believe that's not Keith playing. I said, well, it's like a Xerox machine, copy machine. You put a picture in, you copy it. It's a copy. It's not the real thing, but it's still what he made up, and that's what it took for me to do it.
Yeah, I would agree with his assessment. I mean, it definitely has that Keith Emerson flavor to it. So, I think that you were able to pull it off on the second album. And then on the third album, when you put these songs together, you mentioned Never, and that's the long track at the end of the album, the closer. Did you set out with something in mind in terms of keeping things consistent to the 3.2 sort of blueprint?
I set out to do half of it that way. And the thing for me was that I'm not going to put out another 3 album without Keith. I mean, it can't just be me. That's a solo album. It just can't be. It has to have something to do with what we did together and the parameters, the plan we had. We really had laid it out. But, figure what we did that wasn't right in 1987, 88. We had 27 years to think about that. And of course, we grew. And Keith tried a lot of things. I mean, I always say I wish he would have moved back to England because I don't think California knows how to treat the king of creating great stuff. We're more flavor of the month kind of country. And Europe is very artistic. They get it. And he would have thrived there. And here, it was tough for him, But I followed all the parameters on half the song that we had laid out. But of course, they still had to come out naturally. But like on the first album, I was half the songwriter and the voice. Keith was half the songwriter and the sound. So, and that's not to belittle Carl saying he's just the drummer, because he was a very motivating force, but he didn't write, and he didn't, the lyrics, and the singing and stuff. The part that really made the sound of 3 was Keith and I. So I felt some ownership in that sound and that style, because it did come naturally to me. I started a progressive band, and Geffen was trying to get me out of that. Getting me I always say the Bryan Adams thing. They're trying to focus me into that, and which is great. I love it, but my roots and what I love to do is more artistic and more progressive.
Right. So you said without Keith's involvement, there could be no 3. So is this definitively the last 3.2 project?
Yeah, it's when we got back together to do the second album. It was not only the second album, 3.2, but it was only 2 guys doing it. Well, Keith said, I want to use Simon Phillips, a good friend of mine, but let's get it all done before we add him in. He's genius. Cool. Okay. I'm fine with that. I can do things to a click track. I play drums, so I can, do some stuff where we need something to earmark where accents and things are. And now with this last song of Keith and I's of Never, that's it. I don't have, I've got two measures from a live thing here that, no one's ever, I don't have anything that Keith and I work together on. And if I can't work together with them, then I don't feel it's an honest effort of 3 albums. So there's 3 albums to the 3 legacy. 2 of them are 3.2 because only 2 of us did them.
Right.
And I can't do anymore. Yeah.
So everything we hear on Third Impression is you. Everything we hear.
Yep. I had to do the same thing on Never. I had to replace all of Keith's keyboard parts. But when you get to the middle of that solo section, especially, there's a lot of Keith in there, but the stuff that really stands out is right in the middle. And it's just so him that, of course, I think that really seems like he played that. He wrote it. It sounds like he's playing it. Again, I copied painstakingly the sounds. With digital stuff, if I was a little bit off on a note, I can move it. I don't mean the pitch. I mean, I played the parts, but if it just wasn't the same articulation, I could just move it over with the mouse, Yeah. So it really isn't a Xerox copy of his stuff on there.
Tell me a little about the songs. Did some of these come together easier than others? Tell me a little bit about the song by song process for you.
When Frontiers was trying to get me to do it, and I had the one song I didn't use, I thought there's no way. I'm just not. I'm not ready. I don't have anything. I figured the rules of change was it. That was a tribute to the band, to Keith, lyrically and everything. Is all about my relationship and time with him. And they really, they just said, not many albums are this successful right now. You really have to take it to heart and give it a try. And I started writing, and A Fond Farewell, which was the first single release, is one of the first ones. And like with the last album, and I'm not a guy, I don't believe in the psychic powers and then pie in the sky, oh my God, the cloud looks like Jesus. I'm not that guy, Yeah. I'm more of a realist. I take a lot of chances, but I've always felt like either it's the time I spent with Keith or it's his aura, whatever, influencing me and sort of driving me without it being calculated. The songs just come out and the lyrics just come out. And I found that even though it took 6 months to write the 7 songs I had to do before I started working on Never Again, it wasn't a struggle. What was the struggle was getting the special parts in them. The song and the pieces that came together, that could fit on a 3 album, but it needed to have those special parts. That's what Keith always supplied. Those special things that were just like, oh my God, listen to that thing he's playing and leading into this, or the solo here. That took a little time because I needed to insert some more cleverness, so let's call it. Yeah, but the process wasn't difficult. It just took time. And of course, I'm thinking, I don't have any right to do a 3rd album. People are going to criticize me. They didn't on the first one, and I'm so thankful for that. They're going to go, oh, he's doing another album just for the hell of it. That was always hanging over my head because I wasn't going to release this album unless a couple people, my manager, Anil Prasad, Frontiers, said, no, that's a worthy follow-up. You really should do it. Because it's hard to tell for an artist what you got when you're done, I think.
Yeah. This is not a question I probably could have asked 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, but is this going to be a physical release or digital only?
Frontiers usually puts out CDs. I'll tell you the good news of Frontiers. They've been kind of a metal hard rock label for a long time. They put out a solo album of mine 15 years ago now. That was a little more like an Asia kind of album, but it was fairly AOR. They put out the 3.2, and they realized that progressive music fans or people outside of the rock realm that like more creative kind of music like a booklet and they like a CD, and they want to have a physical thing to put in their shelf, and then they want to read through it. They don't want to look on, even though they're more technical in a lot of ways, progressive fans, as far as, online and the websites and all that stuff. They want to have that physical thing. So Frontiers has decided to get more into progressive music. And my manager actually has he manages a big train. And if you've
Very
heard of
good
them,
band.
they're
Mhm.
a very good band. And they're trying to get big train, but they're not sure what they want to do because they have their own thing going. But other prog bands are now on the Frontiers label because of basically the question and the answer of yes, the physical CD is important to prog fans and music fans in general. Instead of flavor of the month, like I accuse the US of doing, the
Right.
prog fans here like I did a vinyl on the Rules of Change. Frontiers wasn't going to do it. And I said, I'd like to write to do it myself. I want to go to my mastering guy, watch him cut the grooves. I'll have the album covers printed. I'll get special resealable sleeves. I'm going to put a picture. I have a pic that has the first album cover and the second album cover on the side. I stick it the outside. I sign them, and my wife and I put them all together and mail them out. I said, it's that important to me that this honors the memory of everything involved that way. And they let me do it. I can't afford to do it this time. Oh, boy, that's an expensive proposition.
Yeah, it is. Was all this recorded in your home studio, or did you go somewhere to record it?
If I can show you quick, I don't have a home studio.
All right.
Let me get this out of here. I got this nice holder here for my
Okay.
iPad, but this is Pro Tools. This is Pro Tools HDX or something they call it. This is a very old Neve console. Neve is the best you can get in the world, and a lot of tube gear. The old 2 inches there, some of the amps I use. And the fun part, am I going too fast? Am I blurring the screen?
No, you're good. You're good.
These are the guitars I use every day for sessions.
Oh, this is great.
I have everything I need sound wise. There's the mic. That's a Telefunken C12. It's a $10,000 microphone. I bought that specifically for the Rules of Change because I had the Moog rebuilt, everything. So Keith and I had the best of everything. This the real thing you see out there's the main room out there. There's the drum set.
Yeah.
And the vocal booths over there. This is about 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet of studio here.
And where is this?
It's in Campbell, California, which is right in the center of San Jose, kind of. You'll love this. If you go half a mile that way, it's Netflix, where Netflix started. If you go 6 blocks that way, that's where eBay is. If Google, Apple is a mile, and Apple has so many buildings you can't believe. And of course, they have the big spaceship now, that they built. Everything came from here, and because of the politics, everything's leaving here now because they can't afford the taxes. But they're saying like Tesla. Tesla's 5 miles down the road. The factory that builds, I think they're building that new truck now. But Elon is going to take it to Texas, the corporate part, because our taxes are so high. They make it so hard on business. It's incredible what they do. And I kind of don't understand it because we're the 7th largest economy in the world in California. How does that happen, But anyway, so I'm right here in the center of all that. And it doesn't make for the greatest music scene anymore, but it was, especially in the 60s, before my time, San Francisco, all the Grateful Dead and everybody actually came from San Jose. Doobie Brothers, Santa Cruz, 10 minutes away. Moby Grape, all these bands, they were San Jose people. We were the fruit capital of the world. And I don't mean that in the way you might think.
All right. Well, let's not go there.
Yeah. No, but we really were. Yeah, we grew the fruit. This was the Valley of Heart's Delight. An invention like Apple did started here, like way back with fruit. They designed the 3-legged ladder, which was really important to picking fruit. They figured out water tables, how to put water back in the ground. So it has the best weather in the world. So I think that's why people kind of come here. And
yeah, it's Having lived in many places with bad weather, I think that would be attractive. I don't know if you have to go or not, what your
Yeah,
schedule is like today,
I,
but I wanted to make sure that
I
I
don't till
wanted
12. Yeah,
okay,
they're supposed to be half hours. Yesterday they run me ragged, but they gave you an hour for if you need it for some
okay.
reason. You must be a special guy.
I am yes, there's no one more important than me in the music media field. Uh, but I wanted to get your thoughts on if you want the listener to take anything away from this new album that comes out February 12th,
Yeah.
what would it be? What do you want the end listener when they put on the CD and they turn out the lights and they crank it up? What do you want them to take from
Yeah.
this?
There's a few things that bother me with progressive music, and that's a lot of it rambles on. There's nothing to hang on to. The great playing, I love Dream Theater, but after 10 minutes on a 30-minute song, I've had enough. And Jordan, I know Jordan. I mean, all of them, they're so good, but it goes on and on and on, and it's blazing away for blazing away's sake. What I try to do is not only have meanings to a song that are positive, kind of thought provoking in a positive way, but the AOR part of my progressive is to put a chorus in there that's memorable.
Mhm.
So I think, I don't know what they would take away except for that. I hope they can remember the album and they enjoy the lyrics and the story along with the playing. I've never been asked that question before. To think about that. Interesting. Yeah. I do hope they enjoy it. I wish I could get more people from the Yes and Genesis camps on this because I think they would like the sound and the style because both Yes and Genesis had a little more, I don't want to call it compact, but they had that memorable chorus or hook line or something more
Yeah,
than let's say ELP did, except for the Greg Lake songs.
right.
And I wish I could get them involved in this a little bit more and listening to it. Because my end game, me personally, is that enough people like it where I can do another tour, which I did 2019. We were supposed to be in Europe last year, but of course, you know what happened last year.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a last year, was there? I
I
remember
think
that.
last year lasted about 32 years.
Yeah, right. Well, it lasted 2 months, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't until March that it got canceled.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's my hope is enough people like it. And when I did the tour in 2019, we did 27 cities, and a lot of people came out that liked the Magna Carta tribute series, Roundabout and Watch of the
Mhm.
Sky, the ones I rearranged. A Carnival Night I did with Jordan Rudess and Simon Phillips, and it's an incredible version. They came out to see that, came out to hear some of the solo songs, the 3 songs, 3.2, and some of my stuff when I was with Steve Howe and GTR. But I would walk out to the edge of the stage before anything started every night and thank them because I make a living in music. No, I don't know any of my friends that have done that, right? Not from this town. And I'm so thankful for it. And I'm hoping I can get out there again. I want to get down Florida, Texas, and then we did West Coast, East Coast. We got to get down to Florida, definitely. I had a great friend there who died recently that I really wanted to get to Florida, but he came to Missouri to see us. So that was good. Um, but I want to go out and I want to thank everybody and continue playing the history that I've been involved in because I've been really lucky. I mean, how that happened? I'm from San Jose, California. I should be a computer geek, right?
Right. How did you get involved with the Greg Kihn Band?
you know, Greg had a radio show for 18 years here. Um, it was the greatest show we've ever had in town because he played with everybody. He was Bill Graham's boy, right? He was his right hand man. Hey, Greg, if if the Stones were playing up in Seattle, like Greg will say, yeah, Thin Lizzy canceled, they couldn't make it, and he would call and say, Greg, Bill Graham, hey, Greg, Bill, hey, can you guys get to Seattle tomorrow morning and open for the Stones? Yeah, we'll be there. Like it was no big deal.
Yeah.
He got to do everything. He even got cigarettes from Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and stuff. He has a whole stuff, but he has all these stories. They're so incredible. And this radio show was really good. and him and his sidekick were sort of Republican, Democrat. They just mildly a little bit, so they bicker a little bit about things. It was just a great show.
Mm-hmm.
And his bass player died. His bass player Steve did a lot of drugs, was kind of a wild guy, and he had a stroke. And I replaced him while he was still alive. And the bass player was the Joe Satriani of the band. He was, man, he played a lot of stuff. And he goes, man, we couldn't talk. You're the guy, man. You took the blame. I said, no, Steve, you're killing me with your parts. I'm trying to learn this stuff, man. It's really tough. No, you're the man. Greg called me on the radio when Steve had the stroke and said, I need a guy, man. I hear you just left Ambrosia. Are you available? I thought after Ambrosia, my career was done, because I tried for 2 years to get them to do a new album. They weren't ready. They wouldn't do it, whatever it is. They still haven't done one. And that's been 94 or something. Yeah, later than that, 2002, I don't know. But I said, wow, that'd be cool. And how easy to play Greg's music. It's so simple. And now we have a great friendship. Every Thursday morning at 11 o'clock, Greg walks in this door. We spend 4 hours working on writing songs together. And he's a really entertaining, fun guy. So it takes care of that Bryan Adams piece that Geffen wanted me to do. Greg, I can do that with Greg.
Yeah, yeah. Do you still do all the old standards? You're still doing the breakup song and the Jeopardy and all that?
Yeah, one of the greatest things I get to do with Greg is when we go out on his storyteller show, which is a duo. And we did an East Coast tour with that. We didn't get down to Florida though. But he'll talk between every song about, Mick Jagger cigarettes or Bill Graham or, I mean, so many things. And just the two of us on acoustic guitar do this show that is one of my favorite things to do. He's just so good at talking to people. Of course, the radio show for 18 years helped that. But yeah, breakup song. Of course, everybody sings along with that. How can you not? Jeopardy talks about Weird Al. How he put his son and his daughter through college on the royalties from Weird Al doing "I Lost in Jeopardy."
That's great.
Yeah, no, he's a really good guy. Yeah.
Good. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to go back to 3.2 third impression. I know it's a little bit like asking you, asking someone who their favorite, which of their children is their favorite. Do you have a favorite song other than the one that Keith worked on back in the day?
I have to say, a song that's important to me, of course, was the single we just put out, "A Bond of Union." I lost my mom 2 years ago, and I wrote that for her, but she was really sick, and there was no funeral for her. We just had a little service. There was no way I could sing this song at the service. It just didn't work out. And so I wanted to honor her. So I worked it up for this album. And there's an acoustic version on the Japanese release, which is the actual version that I wrote for her, because I changed a few words for this to make it more about your parents and everybody, raised by either a good or a bad parent. It still made us who we are today, basically, with that song. They sacrificed something to do that. That's an important song to me. The other one, the very first song, I set out to do something I thought was sort of Celtic with acoustic guitar in the beginning, and take it into a heavy song. And I wanted it to be first on the album because I thought anybody that's listening to 3 and wants to hear that sound is going to go, what? Celtic guitar, acoustic guitar in the beginning of this? And then it's powerful. And I'm trying to show them where I might head without them getting to Never, the last song, and Fond Farewell and stuff, the more Emerson 3 stuff. So they kind of have to listen past that one day, right? And I've got some great response on that song. So it's sort of a favorite of mine, just because I was worried that it would turn people off, but I had to take that chance. So, yeah, but Devil of Liverpool, I love Devil of Liverpool. When I did a press tour 2 years ago in London, the agent had all these people come in. I needed a break. I was talking to so many people that my wife and I decided to take a taxi cab, a Beatles tour. Let's just do something mundane. Let's something to the Beatles tour. huge Beatles fan because you saw a lot of Vox guitars. I have Vox amps and stuff. My dad had the Vox store here in San Jose when I was really little. So it means something to me that besides the music. We went on this tour and this guy actually grew up. He's this old guy grew up with George Harrison. And he started telling me about this scoundrel way before his time that was a loan shark called the Devil of Liverpool, because he was just talking about life. He wasn't talking about the Beatles tour. We got to see a few things.
Yeah.
Well, and over here, we used to see George over here at this candy store. Oh, cool, and the Devil of Liverpool was something I thought, oh, I got to get home. That sounds like a song. And I researched it. I couldn't find anything. I mean, a couple things about the guy, but the story really came from the guy in the taxi cab. So there's so many cool things that happen to you in life that you can write songs out of, but you have to identify them, like I'm talking about your background being a little bit pale. You could have used a few more colors than that. I don't know what that is. Is that a 3? What is that?
It's a 3.2, actually.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Devil of Liverpool was, when I read the song titles before I even listened to the tracks, was one that stood out to me, and I wondered about that one because it's such a great phrase.
Yeah, well, it caught you the same way it did when the guy said it to me. I'm like, oh, what was that? I put in my phone.
Yeah, that's the one you jot down in your notebook right away.
Yes, exactly. I would have forgot that. That's just me. I have ideas all the time, but the problem with having ideas all the time is they go just as quick as they come.
Yeah, and they're especially when you wake up thinking of something. If you don't write it down immediately, I'll get to it, and then before you're even out of the shower, you don't even know what that was anymore.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of songwriters. A lot of what I do here, so I do play a lot of instruments. I work with single people, singer-songwriters. They come in, I arrange, I play the instruments that they don't play, and then they do their vocal with my vocal producer here, Tom Duell, who does a fantastic job of them. And it's $1,000 to get your song done. It's not that much money, but it's like, well, you've heard my stuff. The quality is the highest with the Neve console and everything. And I always tell them, I said, you have two sides of your brain. You have the creative side and analytical side. Most people, the switch doesn't go like this. And that's kind of like when you wake up, you're disarmed. So your creative side's thinking something, but as soon as you get analytical, that side's gone,
Shuts it right down.
Yeah.
Oh man, I have enjoyed our conversation, Robert. I really appreciate your time. I hope that this Third Impression album does very well for you, and maybe we'll have you back on after it's been out, and maybe you've gotten a chance to go out and play some of these songs live, and would love to talk to you again.
Well, I've enjoyed the time, and I definitely will talk to you when you have time to do it. I'm doing so many interviews, and luckily, everybody's saying that they like the album because, for me, I'm like, okay, what's going to happen now? It's going to be out the 12th, what are people going to think? The response has been interesting. Half of the interview, I've done 20 now, half of them say they like it better than the Rules of Change, which I didn't think was possible because that was sort of a tortured album for me with what happened right in the middle of it. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. I can't wait to go play some of the songs too live. So I appreciate your time. Excellent.
My pleasure. And like I said, if anybody that liked the previous 3.2 album will like this, and yeah, I could definitely see a good deal of that audience preferring the new one. It's the songs are catchy. The songs are, I think you achieved what you set out to achieve from what from the few listens that I've had.
Half of it's a little bit like my time in GTR. I've sort of morphed the 3 and the GTR thing together to maybe be what I do next, kind of, So, well, that's why I'm interested to see what people think. There's a lot more guitar on this album.
Yeah. So I'm assuming it'll be on all of the streaming services, and people can get it on Amazon and everything. So Third Impression by 3.2. Robert Berry, thanks again for your time. And you do make it to Florida, I promise I'll come see you.
We got to make it to Florida when it's not humid, though. So when is that? Maybe we'll go when it's humid.
2 weeks in January. I think maybe it's not that humid.
Oh, we'll see you in next January then.
That's right.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.